Welcome to the SBCA podcast, Component Connection, where we explore the people, ideas, trends, and innovations shaping the structural framing industry. Regardless of how you touch this industry, we're glad you're here. Enjoy the episode.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to this episode of SBCA's podcast, Component Connection. We are at the end of week 2 now for the SBCA European Industry Tour. We have just finished in Germany and Ireland with a total of 7 tours between those two countries. So we've had a very productive 3 days.
Yes, busy time.
So I am joined today by Taylor and Greg, and we are going to just give you a quick recap of what our week was and what we saw and what our key takeaways were. So I will let Greg start us off.
All right. Well, thank you. Yeah, I guess probably the biggest thing that really stood out to me initially is we started out in Germany, saw how the building construction methods went there, and then came over to Ireland. Just the vast difference between how they construct houses, both in Germany and how they do it in Ireland. Germany, very precise manufacturing. Ireland looked a lot more exactly like how we would do things typically in the United States.
Absolutely. I think for me, one of my key takeaways was looking at their focus on lean manufacturing and what that looks like in a bite-sized portion. So not going from 0 to fully automated, but they had everything in between where they were really focused on the process of improving their output and not necessarily just how can we make this more automated, but how can we make the automation work for us? So I think that was a really different way of thinking than what I've heard before.
Yeah, and I think for me, one of my bigger takeaways after seeing both full weeks was, and I think our attendees really appreciated this as well, a lot of the places we saw the first week were in the middle of testing phases. There wasn't necessarily a lot of the equipment running, whereas this week they got to see the entire factories running, production was moving, and I think that meant a lot to them and was really beneficial for them to be able to go walk through and see that at multiple places.
Yeah, I think, Greg, one thing I'm curious from you is from the technical side, what things were you really impressed by this week?
I guess the one thing that really stood out to me is when you walk into these facilities of these component manufacturers and of the machine manufacturers, their facilities are very brightly lit. It's a comfortable environment for all their employees. You can tell there's a real focus on employee development. A lot of apprenticeship type programs worked into it, things like that. And that really stood out. And you could just tell that the employees that they had took great pride in everything that they were doing. And that was neat to see.
Yeah, I think one of the other things I really enjoyed was watching our attendees this week ask a million questions, which I think was refreshing for a lot of the people giving tours, because a lot of their previous experience giving tours were for people maybe not in the industry. So I think that on both sides, there was a lot of information transferred during our tours, and a lot of them went longer than we anticipated.
I think we blew past every deadline we were supposed to have the entire time.
Time flies when you're having fun.
Yeah. No, but it was very engaging, and it was neat to see the people that were on the tour really be so interested in everything that we were doing. You could tell that they were really benefiting and getting a lot out of those conversations. And likewise, the other way around, there was a lot of curiosity from a lot of our hosts about the way we do things in the United States as well. So it wasn't just a one-way street.
Yeah.
There's a lot of communication back and forth.
Yeah. Taylor, from your perspective, what was like the most innovative thing you saw on our tours this week?
I had never been on any sort of plant tour before these past 2 weeks. So this has just been a whirlwind, seeing all kinds of different things. We've been to suppliers, we've been to component manufacturers, we've been to a lumber mill. So just being able to see everything has been a lot of information, a little overwhelming. I'm still definitely processing everything we saw. I think our tour today, the last tour we did in NUA, was incredible. I mean, if we want to talk about innovation, that was the tour today. They have a whole part of their factory dedicated just to the new things that they're trying out and what they're trying to bring into the industry. And that was really cool to see and see how they are doing that, how they are thinking this through and testing it on site and troubleshooting it. I think, what did they say today? They built that test house in the worst conditions possible to try and troubleshoot what they need to do better for the future.
Yeah, they certainly had a strong focus on innovation. And as Abby talked a little bit ago about lean manufacturing. Yeah. One of the things I thought was really neat, we had the pleasure of touring two of the equipment manufacturers' facilities, Weinmann and Hunter. And then we were able to see in those component manufacturers the use of that equipment. And a lot of the equipment, kind of as I mentioned before, just the way they do joints and details, those aren't things we typically see in the United States.
Right.
So it was really neat to not only see how that equipment was made, but then how it was actually used with the component manufacturers.
Yeah, we got to see them flex their muscle a little bit on their equipment.
Exactly, yes.
Well, thank you guys for joining us for this episode. And if you liked this podcast, please feel free to like and subscribe wherever you listen. And we'll see you next time on Component Connection.
Thanks for listening to Component Connection, brought to you by SBCA. If there's a topic you'd like us to explore in a future episode, email us at podcast@sbcacomponents.com.